With the 85th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns selected Zak Zinter, offensive guard from Michigan. Now, Buckeyes fans, please don't just leave the video. I like this pick a lot for the Browns, and I'm going to tell you why, because I always try to come into the video for draft picks with a bit of a non-biased look and then just give you my reaction later on. But when I saw this pick, I knew it wasn't a butts and seat. It's not a fun flat splash wide receiver, but I think it's a very good pick for the Browns, and it's something that I've been talking about on the channel for a long time, that the Browns may be looking to use the 2024 draft to fulfill 2025 draft needs. And I think that's what the Zak Zinter pick, along with their pick at 54 with Michael Hall, is all about. Now, before we get too in the weeds on the pick, just right off the bat, how would you grade the selection of Zak Zinter? Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. I'll give you some background information on him that might influence your letter grade. He is a 4-year starter for the Michigan Wolverines and held down their right guard position. If it sounds like a familiar name, that's because Zak Zinter is the player that had a very gruesome leg injury against the Ohio State Buckeyes shortly after Thanksgiving, but he doesn't have any dominant physical traits. Like when you think about guards, usually you don't see them go very early in the draft unless like a Quentin Nelson who just is an absolute mauler as a pulling guard. I don't know if Zak Zinter has that element in his game, but I can tell you what, the guy is mean, he is nasty, and he is physical. Now, Tom Downey had him ranked as the 12th overall guard and 150th in the entire draft. But the question is really about what his health status is, right? If the Browns can get him back to what he was like before he suffered that really unfortunate injury at the end of his 2023 season, broken tibia and fibula in his left leg, along with a broken wrist in 2021, which, by the way, he played through it. That's just the kind of player he is. He also suffered an injury later on in October of 2021, but the guy is just an absolute meanie. I don't know how else to describe it other than I don't want to be on the receiving end of a Zak Zinter block. I think this is a pick where the Browns are thinking 2 steps ahead. Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, aging, expensive guards for 2025. They're not going anywhere this year. But I think what the Browns are doing is looking at the board thinking, we can get a really good football player that probably needs some time to recover from his very serious leg injury, and we can give him all the time in the world. We have our 2 starting guards. We have Michael Dunn to be the first guy off the bench if needed. And then in 2025, I think this is when you may circle back to this name, because that could be a point where the Browns go, listen, we just cannot afford to pay both Bitonio and Teller, who, by the way, in 2025 will have $20+ million cap hits. That's a huge number for positional value that just doesn't get that much love at guard. So I think Zak Zinter, along with the Michael Hall pick in round 2, which we'll talk about at the end of the video, were not picks for the 2024 Browns. They were picks for the 2025 Browns, which I don't have much of an issue with because the Browns didn't go into the draft this year needing to satisfy any other needs. You can make an argument for linebacker, which they still have time to do. You can make an argument for running back, which I could have made the argument for. But if they think Zak Zinter is going to be the next Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, this is a franchise that takes pride in their offensive linemen. It's got a great lineage of it. And if they think Zinter is the next Cleveland Brown guard for a decade plus, I'm not going to stand in the way of that selection. So I'm a fan of this pick. I'll give you my full grade on it, though, later on when I do my day 2 draft grades for the Michael Hall pick and the Zak Zinter selection. Now, we're going to share more on Zinter in just a moment, but really quickly, I do have to fill everyone watching in about our wonderful sponsor today, which is PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. The way PrizePicks works is you pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. They already have projected stats for some of the first-round picks. I like the more on Caleb Williams' passing yards a ton. Also a big fan of the less on J.J. McCarthy's passing yards. Not a big J.J. fan, Also, don't think he's going to be a week 1 starter. And 3,100 yards is a lot for someone to get to if they don't start at the beginning of the season. And then I like the more on Malik Neighbors, 875. And I thought if I said that, I might hear my Michigan boss, James Yoder, pop into the studio. I might change to the more on JJ, actually, so I still have a job tomorrow. But you know what? If I don't, well, with PrizePicks, I can turn $10 into $1,000. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Shout out to PrizePicks for supporting us here at the Cleveland Browns Report. Now, let's get back to Zak Zinter. I want to read to you guys a little popcorn-style reading here, what Dane Brugler from The Athletic had to say on the selection. Overall, Zinter won't impress with explosion or leverage, but he is big, smart, and physical, which allows him to control defenders, especially in close quarters. He can have a Mark Glowinski type of NFL career, although his leg injury puts a discount sticker on his draft projection. I feel like this is the kind of pick that has the making of people may look back and go, how did that Pro Bowler fall all the way to the late stages of round 3? Oh, that's right, he suffered an injury in college. Well, he went to a perfect spot in Cleveland where they did not ask him to be available for the start of the 2024 NFL season, right? Give him all the time he needs to rehab, get his left leg back to 100%, coming off a major leg injury. And then if the time comes in 2025, if the Browns move on from one of their 2 starting guards, well, they're not going to go into next year's draft having a pressing need. If you haven't noticed by now, Andrew Berry has shown a habit and a style in his draft picks. He likes to draft 1 year ahead, right? Which brings me to Mike Hall, for example. Their pick at 54. Do they need Mike Hall's services for this year? Unless someone gets injured, not really. I wouldn't be shocked if both Zinter and Hall are 2 guys that are healthy scratches for most of 2024. And I'm not going to panic over that because the Browns continue to draft for needs the next year because Andrew Berry likes to satisfy his team needs before the draft. He doesn't want to go into the draft going, we need to get a starting linebacker, and the guy we pick has to be good because all of our eggs are in that basket. That's just not the way Andrew Berry rolls. So personally on the Hall selection, it wasn't my preferred choice. There were some other guys that I liked a little bit more at that spot. But again, if Andrew Berry thinks this extremely athletic defensive tackle who's not even 21 years old can blossom into something with Jim Schwartz and Mike Vrabel as his coaches, who am I to stand in the way? And as for Zak Zinter, maybe the Browns can set up some kind of loan program with Brian Callahan. Just ship him up to Cleveland for a week. He probably won't even know the difference, and have him coach up Zak Zinter a little bit. So no first-round pick for the Browns, but in rounds 2 and 3, they go in the trenches, which if you've been following the channel for the last 2 or 3 weeks, actually put it back further than that, month and a half, 2 months, I have been stressing that I don't think the Browns are going to go wide receiver early. They're going to go in the trenches. And what does Andrew Berry do with his first 2 picks in the draft? He goes defensive line and offensive line. Color me not surprised at all. And you wouldn't be surprised either if you knew that because you were subscribed to the channel. So one last time, make sure to go ahead, hit the sub button down below, and we're going to see you guys with more draft coverage starting bright and early tomorrow for the day 3 of the 2024 NFL Draft.